Hey guys, today on the Vinyl Rundown we're going to talk about a documentary, and this is one that none of you have seen because it's a YouTube only, but the story, the subject of this documentary is Guess Who? Not the Guess Who, you're supposed to guess. Nirvana? It's actually Kurt Cobain. We're going to talk about Kurt Cobain today, and I got a copy of Nevermind around here somewhere. I can't find it as usual. I can't find anything, so thanks to my son for letting me steal his two records. He's a big Nirvana fan also. This is a documentary called Kurt Cobain Murdered. And this is by a guy named Brendan Hunt, who's Brendan Hunt, I think. He's an actor who did a self-made documentary on YouTube about a conspiracy theory that may involve the murder rather than suicide of Kurt Cobain. And there are a lot of movies and books and videos about the supposed murder of Kurt Cobain, whether it was suicide or actually a murder. And let's see, I found this on a channel on YouTube called X-Ray Ultra. That's pretty strange because my Instagram account is GK Ultra. What does that mean? You can figure that out. Unrelated, just kind of a weird coincidence. So this is a self-made documentary. This guy Brendan put in a lot of work, a lot of time, a lot of graphics, a lot of video clips, but it's ultimately a low budget, made it in his whatever room in his house. Audio's okay, graphics are okay. A lot of information. How much information can you pack into a documentary? So he went 3-4 hours? No. This is a 5.5 hour documentary. 5.5 hours of the murder of Kurt Cobain. Disclaimer, I am not theorizing that anybody committed murder or that anybody is involved in any murder conspiracy, and all I'm doing is telling you there's a documentary out there, and this documentary takes a firm position, and there's a number of other authors out there who take firm positions on the fact that they think Kurt was murdered. So disclaimer, I'm not accusing anyone of committing murder. I'm relaying information from other authors and sources. So let's get into this. There's a lot of weird factoids going on with Kurt's final days, and there's some interesting interviews from some interesting people in this who have strong opinions. So the first one who keeps coming up is her dad. Courtney Love's dad, Hank Harrison, has been on camera many times talking about, he uses the phrase involvement in the murder of Kurt Cobain. He's very explicit in saying, I'm not accusing her of murder, I'm not accusing her of causing this or ordering it, but she may have been involved. And he's also said that Courtney threatened his life, her father's life, many times over the years. And he talks about her being very unruly and hard to parent, let's say. There's a lot of stories and blah blah blah. So Hank Harrison's been in all the movies, all the documentaries about this, talking about Courtney's possible involvement without getting into specifics. That's somebody who you'd think would know her. Then there's another gentleman who pops up frequently. Tom Grant is a private investigator that Courtney hired to keep an eye on Kurt. And Courtney was supposedly, is Kurt cheating on me? Is he cheating on me with the bass player from Hole? Is he cheating on me with who knows what? Is Kurt getting ready to leave Courtney? I'm going to screw up those words a few hundred times. Kurt, Courtney. So Tom Grant, he's been in many interviews saying, well, I started working for Courtney and then things got weird and I started to suspect that I wasn't seeing the whole picture, and I started to suspect that there may be some weirdness going on here. So that's another person who supposedly is very close to the story, and there's actually a lot of tape of the two of them talking. I don't know where that came from. I guess he recorded her. Okay, that's just another person who may or may not be in the know as to what happened. Then there's another person who figures very strangely in this thing. There's a group called the Mentors with a guy named Eldon Hoke, and he went by the nickname El Duce, which is really Mussolini's nickname. He was this kind of boisterous, rotund, party animal, rock punk musician dude who, he was a big drinker. I don't know if he was using drugs or not, but he has gone on camera stating that Courtney offered him $50,000 to whack Kurt. That story got out, and the LAPD took him and did lie detector tests on him, and it came back as a positive. Like, yeah, we think he's telling the truth. Supposedly, the owner of the club where this occurred, like out on the sidewalk in front of some club in LA. So El Duce, he was interviewed for another documentary. I think it was a BBC documentary. And that footage is in this documentary that I'm talking about, the 5-hour documentary. A documentary crew went out to his little, house out in Riverside and banged on the gate, and they interviewed him, and he said, yeah, Courtney offered me 50 grand to whack Kurt, and I should have taken it. That was a lot of money. And then he's, anyway, watch the documentary, guys. This is a review of a documentary. That's one of the most interesting scenes of this documentary, and that scene is taken from another guy's documentary, this more serious journalist. So anyway, El Duce went on camera stating that fact, and then, oddly, 2 weeks later, El Duce was hit and killed by a train in a rather bizarre accident. So that's a weird coincidence that is pointed out in this movie. They make a big deal out of that being a weird coincidence as opposed to a random accident. Supposedly a unknown mystery man showed up at El Duce's house in a big black truck, and they went off together, and El Duce got hit by a train. End of story. So, odd story. This same journalist who interviewed El Duce was at some awards thing put on by the ACLU, I don't know, a couple of years later, and Courtney Love was up on stage. This is like Beverly Hilton, downtown, one of these fancy celebrity banquets. And there's footage of this in the documentary. Courtney Love is up there accepting some award, doing something for this banquet for the ACLU. And this documentary guy, sorry I don't have his name, kind of jumps on stage and says, ACLU, why are you giving an award to this lady who makes a habit of, not attacking, but silencing journalists? How does a free speech organization give an award to her? 5.5-hour documentary, guys. I don't expect anybody to sit and watch it in one sitting. Take bits and pieces of it, put it on your phone, on your headphones while you're exercising or cleaning, whatever it is you do in your spare time. But it's worth checking out, and there are dozens and dozens of documentaries on all over the place that are related to this theory. There's another fact that came up in the movie, that Kurt Cobain's suicide letter is kind of suspect. Not a suspect, but they suspect it's not 100% truthful. Multiple handwriting experts have looked at his suicide note and said that the first 2/3 of it looks cool. That looks like it's in Kurt's handwriting. But the second, or the last, third of it, last paragraph, looks like it's definitely in a different pen, and it looks like it's in a different handwriting. Multiple handwriting experts have said that there's this disconnect between the two parts of the suicide letter. The first part of the letter is more about, hey, I'm leaving, I'm quitting, I'm changing my life, I'm starting over. And it's only in the second part where it's more like, I'm committing suicide. So there's some suspect things going on with that letter. Multiple experts have pointed to that. So when Kurt died, his daughter I guess she was about 3 years old, Frances Bean, and she's grown into some artist and model, I think. She's had a very bitter breakup with Courtney, and they've had all kinds of legal battles, and I think Frances Bean really owns the rights to most of the Kurt Cobain music rights and estate. But they've had a very bitter series of battles, and Frances has accused her mom of killing animals or being involved in killing animals. There's a lot of people in this movie accusing Courtney of a lot of stuff. I'm not accusing Courtney of anything. I've never met Courtney. I don't know Courtney. I wasn't there. I don't think I've ever been to Seattle. I'm just a guy who watches stuff on the internet, okay? So, please, I hope no one comes to whack me. I have no intention of committing suicide. Let me go on record stating I have no intention of committing suicide. I have a lovely wife, child. Good job. Then there's one last factoid that was kind of not covered in this movie, but it's been covered in a lot of other places. Courtney had accused Kurt of having an affair with the bass player of the band Hole, Kristen Pfaff, P-F-A-F-F. And I think she made the accusations to both people. She told Kurt, quit looking at my bass player, and she told the bass player, quit looking at my husband. Not in those words, but there's evidence that those conversations took place. And of course, Kristen Pfaff, she was found dead 2 or 3 months after Kurt died. The world is a freaky place, guys, and it's inhabited by freaky people, some good, some bad. I think everybody has potential to do good and evil, depending on the circumstances. And the more you screw up your mind with drugs, the more likely you are to get involved in some bad stuff. So keep clean, stay safe, check out these documentaries. They're for enjoyment and entertainment purposes only. And enjoy, and thanks for watching, guys. Talk to you soon.